Oh, we'd be alright if the wind was in our sails. We'd be alright if the wind was in our sails. We'd be alright.
Ahoy, and welcome to Pixarize's scene for Vitamin C Deficiency and Excess, part of our series on the vitamins. This scene takes place aboard a pirate ship, so avast ye and shiver me timbers, time to batten down the hatches and heave ho, lest we find ourselves walking the plank and feeding the fishes in Davy Jones' locker. Yo ho ho, thar she blows. Booty. Arr. Alright, that's every piratism I can think of, so with that out of the way, I think it's safe for us to get going. First, we'll cover vitamin C deficiency, better known as scurvy. You might not think scurvy is still a big problem in the era of modern medicine, and you might even be right, it's pretty rare. Still, exam writers insist you know all about it. They probably just like pirates. Speaking of which, take a look at the two pirates on the lower deck.
Scurvy dog.
Check out the guy in the black and white stripes. Wouldn't want to mess with him in that curvy sword. His menacing sword is curvy to represent scurvy. It's curvy. Scurvy. Get it? He and his friend are going to help us remember all of the signs and symptoms of scurvy. But before we examine each of them, it's helpful to point out that almost all of the clinical features of scurvy are products of defective collagen synthesis. If you checked out our scene on vitamin C biochemistry, you'd probably remember that vitamin C is an important cofactor for lysine and proline hydroxylases. Think back to our old fisherman's college graduation hat, proline fishing pole, and lysine lace. In scurvy, most of the presenting symptoms are a product of leaky blood vessels, which are secondary to defective collagen in the extracellular membrane and the vascular beds. Let's start with our black and white striped guy's mouth. See how it's all red and swollen after the gang's latest brawl? Ouch, it looks like this unlucky pirate received a punch straight to the mouth.
Arg.
That's to symbolize the swollen gums that are seen in scurvy patients. And if we pan down to his knees, we'll see that those are pretty banged up as well from the fight. I guess he was kneeing dudes in the face left and right. These bruised knees represent hemarthrosis, or bleeding into the joint spaces. Now, let's swing over to our second pirate and zoom in on his face. Yep, he looks mean. And it looks like he was part of the fight too, because he's got quite the shiner. His black eye will help us remember the bruising seen in scurvy, which can be extensive and cover large swaths of skin. If we look down, we'll see he's holding a couple of grisly spoils of war. In his right hand, he's got a human bone. It looks like a tibia? I sometimes forget pirates were kinda murderous and terrible. Disney makes them seem so quirky and hilarious. Anyway, he's holding this bloody bone to represent subperiosteal hemorrhage, or the accumulation of blood between the periosteum and the underlying bone. In his left hand, he's got what seems to be a clump of bloody fur. Yeah, we'll call it fur. The blood dripping from this bushy pelt will help remind us that scurvy patients often show signs of perifollicular hemorrhage, which appears as pinpoint bleeding around hair follicles. And yikes, it looks like he's getting blood splattered all over the lower deck. Doesn't he know he's probably going to have to swab that deck later? Dude's got no prescience. At least he made it easier for us to remember that petechiae, or small purple or reddish splotches covering the skin, are a common finding in scurvy patients as well. Getting back to our first pirate, we can see he's uncorking some rum to celebrate the victory. Getting bloodied and bruised constitutes a victory, I guess. He seems to be uncorking his bottle with a corkscrew hand, which seems less practical to me than the classic hook hand, but what do I know, I'm not a pirate. His corkscrew hand will help us remember corkscrew hairs. Defective collagen synthesis can lead to defective keratin in scurvy patients, and they'll often present with corkscrew-shaped body hair. Now, if we look at the bottle of rum he's popping, we can see that it's actually almost empty.
Where's me rum?
Sucks for him. Now how's he supposed to properly celebrate? This nearly empty red rum bottle is there to represent anemia, since scurvy patients can also present with signs of enormocytic anemia. The mechanism here isn't fully understood, but evidence shows that vitamin C is important for the proper maturation of red blood cells in the bone marrow, and deficiency leads to defective erythropoiesis. Finally, check out our pirate's menacing cane. I guess he's already anticipating the future pegleg. The cane is our recurring symbol for immunocompromise, and indeed, scurvy patients show a weakened immune response. Before we move on to vitamin C excess, it's worth pointing out that many of the symptoms of scurvy are also seen in other hematological disorders. Petechiae and bruising are signs of a primary coagulation disorder. Hemarthrosis is indicative of congenital defects in secondary coagulation, like hemophilia, and normocytic anemia has a whole host of possible causes. Exam writers will often prey on this to see if you can differentiate between these diseases and scurvy. Question stems will mention homeless patients who have limited access to fruits and vegetables, with bleeding gums, poor wound healing, and defective tooth formation, all of which are unique to scurvy. Since bleeding is due to the fragility of blood vessels, coagulation parameters should be normal. Now, on to vitamin C excess. No fancy name for it like scurvy, unfortunately. We've allocated all of our symbols for vitamin C excess to the upper deck of our pirate vessel, where it seems our captain, who knew about scurvy, has been allocating all of the ship's fruit supply to himself and is chowing down. If we take a closer look at him, we can see that all that vitamin C is starting to take its toll. He's vomiting profusely, and the diarrhea coming out of his pants is giving new meaning to the phrase poop deck. In reality, vitamin C excess usually presents after patients take too many high-density vitamin C supplements, since the daily recommended vitamin C intake is 65 to 90 milligrams, and symptoms of excess only begin to surface after consuming well over 2,000 milligrams. An orange contains 50 milligrams of vitamin C, and you don't see many people clearing 40 oranges a day. Still, like with scurvy, you need to be familiar with the signs and symptoms of vitamin C excess. In addition to GI disturbances, patients can present with fatigue, which is represented by our captain's hammock. Below the hammock are a few anchors.
Weigh anchor!
I don't know why a ship needs this many anchors, but again, I am not a pirate. Recall from our old man in the vitamin C biochemistry scene that vitamin C reduces dietary iron to a form that can be absorbed by the small intestine. These iron anchors are here to remind us that iron-sensitive patients, like those receiving frequent blood transfusions or those with hemochromatosis, are at a risk for developing a vitamin C-induced iron overload. Finally, see that ox horn at our captain's flank full of gold stones? Makes you want to buy a sweet flank horn for your gold, doesn't it? Well, it's here to symbolize the calcium oxalate crystals that can develop in the kidneys of patients taking too much vitamin C. Ox horn for oxalate, and gold stones for kidney stones. Neat and tidy. And that's all for vitamin C deficiency and excess. I hope you had fun aboard this pirate ship and appreciated that I refrained from drowning you in cringy pirate puns. Aren't you glad I didn't force this hell on ye? Yeah, count your blessings. And your doubloons. Until next time.